February 1st of this year, business was fantastic. I mean, literally, we were coming off of the best month of my entire time at Hyatt Commercial. And by the end of February, there was some concern that we had this disease coming our way. By the end of March, the world is completely different. I mean, literally, I haven't seen you in 6 or 7 weeks now, it feels like. And every single industry has been impacted by it. Being honest and realistic about the situation that we're living through. Hey, this is not going to turn around overnight. Things that you've worked on and things that you've chased for a long time are going to disappear. It's simply the nature of this type, recession of any kind, and this seems to be, far deeper than what I've lived through in the past.
All right, guys, I'm here with Justin Mullen, Senior Vice President of Hyatt Commercial. Justin, it's been a month or two since I've seen you. Looks like you've got a great mustache going there.
Thank you. I read somewhere that face masks don't, suction properly with a beard, so all non-essential facial hair had to go.
That's good. Well, as you can see here, I'm really working on mine as well. It's really coming in thick. So
you look just as pretty as I remember you.
Awesome, Justin. Well, hey, starting off here, you've got a great history. I'm going to read your bio directly from the screen here so I don't mess up. But you joined Hyatt Commercial in 2017 with more than 10 years experience in the commercial real estate industry. As a broker of record and senior VP, you manage the day-to-day brokerage operations, business development, and you focus on sourcing and acquiring commercial real estate investments for the growing Hyatt Commercial portfolio. You've completed over $300 million in leasing and sale transactions in your career. You have served clients in various industries, including healthcare, telecommunications, professional services, health and fitness, marketing, and institutional and private investors. You're a 6th-generation Annapolitan. That's Annapolis, Maryland, for those of you who are watching that are not from here. You graduated from St. Mary's High School. You received a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Virginia, and you have deep roots in Maryland real estate and business communities. You are a very active member of the Building Tradition Society of the Arundel Medical Center Foundation. You are a former president and very active member of the Touchdown Club of Annapolis, the Royal Blue Club, and you have been a youth lacrosse coach. You currently live in Annapolis with your wife, Courtney, and 2 children. Justin, that's awesome, man. What did I miss? Who are you? Tell me anything else about yourself that people should know.
No, I appreciate the introduction like that. All of those things are very important to me, as a matter of fact. The reason I'm at Hyatt Commercial and in the industry that I'm in is because of a lot of those relationships that I've built over the years, whether it be from high school, college, through those organizations, coaching lacrosse, playing lacrosse for that matter. In fact, my grandfather, Ed Mullen Sr., was a one-time partner of Lou Hyatt, who founded Hyatt Commercial. And so there's a lot of deep relationships, even though I spent 10 years of my career with a different company. The last 3 years spent at Hyatt Commercial has been really important to me because it's allowed me to do what I love and what we're really good at Hyatt Commercial, which is build off of really deep relationships and focus on building long-term relationships with our clients. And in many cases, that's our clients become our friends, or they start as our friends and become our clients. In some cases, it's family. In some cases, we really become part of their team, and they really become part of our team. And that's kind of my singular focus in this industry has been on the people and the relationships and providing really high quality services to support those really important, valuable relationships that, I've built personally, my team has built, certainly Lou Hyatt, who founded the company in 1961. He's lived through, and the company has lived through many highs and lows in this industry. and always come out on the other side stronger than what they were going into a down period like this. And as kind of the person in charge of running the team now, it's really important to me to be a good steward of the business that Lou founded. And certainly Alan Hyatt has had a lot of impact on, and Stephen Hyatt, the third generation, was in this role prior to myself. And so I really look at myself as a steward for, their family and their relationships, my family and my relationships, your family, Cecil. All of us bring these really unique relationships to the table, and together we're able to, put a value to those in the commercial real estate world. So that's give you a little bit more depth on who I am. That's kind of how I approach my role and managing the company as a whole.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, if you look across the country, there's so many businesses like that are built on relationships and built on people. And you mentioned in there, as we go into a downturn, right now we're in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. And just for a frame of reference of time, right now, worldwide, so today is April 27th, we have worldwide 3,015,298 cases of SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. There's been roughly over 1 million closed cases with 200,000 of those resulting in death and roughly 880,000 of those recovering. United States alone has 987,000 cases, so roughly a third of the worldwide cases, with over 55,000 deaths and over 118,000 recovered. So this has been a significant event in the world. I mean, it is impacting almost every single nation in the world and impacting every community differently. And you mentioned relationships and people. The way that we are now connecting with others and the way that our relationships are being developed right now are totally different than they ever have before. Can you give me an idea of what the direct impact for you has been on your business, specifically as it relates to people?
Sure. So when you asked me to do this interview, I took a look at kind of your outline and what you've been focused on in your past interviewees. And you guys have done a fantastic job of touching on a lot of different asset classes and ways of dealing with tenants and what the future looks like for investments. And you touched on it so much that I thought I would focus even more so on the human capital side of our business and just, the economy and the general atmosphere that we're all living through right now. So I appreciate you being flexible and letting me focus on that, because that's really where my focus starts, regardless of what situation we're in. It always, to me, starts with the people, and then you build the deal or the solution around based on the skills and the people that you have. And so for our team, and our team really is a mix of some staff that support the brokerage team. We've got a property management team that manages a diverse portfolio of multifamily, single family, retail shopping centers, grocery anchored shopping centers, Class A office space, flex buildings. It's essentially everything but hotels and tourism. We manage something across the spectrum there, and then our brokerage team, which similarly is really diverse in age, diverse in experience, diverse in product type. Whether it be investment sales or leasing or doing development, ground rents and pad sites. Again, we've got a really diverse team that each of them is being impacted uniquely based on the type of business that they run within Hyatt Commercial. And again, that's, property management as well as brokerage team. But what is kind of, not different across all of those is the fact that everybody is living through the same uncertainty that essentially the entire world is living through right now. We're all individually asking ourselves, how does this affect my business? How does this affect my job? How does this affect my clients, my tenants that I manage? How does this affect my, Hyatt Commercial as a company? And truthfully, there's not a lot of straight answers for any of those questions. The one thing that I've kind of continued to respond to people, because we're all dealing with it in different ways, and sometimes and we're all living on a roller coaster right now. You talk to people, and one day they're optimistic and see light at the end of the tunnel, and the next day they're angry at the world. And my kind of philosophy living through that and trying to guide each other to live through that has been that there's no right or wrong way to feel right now. There's probably right and wrong ways to react, but there's no right or wrong way to feel about this whole situation. And so as a manager of the team, that's really been my focus, is how do I take care of the people that are most important to what makes me successful. Right out of the gates, we were able to send, but really it was voluntary the first 2 weeks, and then kind of we shut the doors to our brokerage team. Again, we didn't plan for this type of situation, but when I took over this role, we implemented policies and procedures and technologies that essentially have allowed our brokerage team to work without any interruption from home or mobily, wherever that may be. And that has paid dividends through this shutdown. There was really no ramp up phase of, hey, we need to go, get virtual desktops or get our CRM to the cloud. All of that was already done, and has allowed our brokerage team, people like yourself, who had settlement last week and has signed deals in the midst of all of this, to continue to do what you do. And again, going back to kind of in good times or bad, my role is really to do that, is to support the team and provide the resources that are necessary. On the flip side of it is we do have a portion of the support staff that really has to be in the office. You've got to take calls from tenants. You've got to be able to get checks when they're delivered. You've got to be able to take service calls and be able to get move quickly to react to issues that come up in the property management portfolio. So we've had a very small staff that has to come into the office every day, and having spent the first 3 to 4 weeks of this shutdown, self-quarantine because I had traveled to Los Angeles the first week of March and then down to Florida in the second week of March. I know the challenges of working from home. I have 2 toddlers at home, love them dearly, but trying to remain focused and help my wife, who's got her hands full with 2 kids and trying to keep her career going. It's very challenging to work from home, and we get frustrated working from home. Flip side of that, we're asking people to come into the office and work without really having the energy and enthusiasm of an entire team in here. And that's its own, presents its own challenge. So as you can see, maybe you can't tell, but I am back in the office a few hours a day. My office is at one end where the brokerage team primarily works out of, and property management is kind of at the other end. So we try not to, cross paths significantly, to keep our social distancing. But at the same time, from a psychological perspective, the people that are here need to see leadership here and need to feel that support. We can't ask them to be here, doing those critical tasks and not provide the support that they need. So short answer, after giving you a very long one, is, the great news is we haven't had to, cut anybody's time back. We haven't laid anyone off. We have no intention of doing that anytime soon. Our brokerage team continues to get deals done and close transactions that were in process. Certainly, we've lost transactions. We'd all be kidding ourselves if we tried to claim we hadn't. And supporting the staff that's here to continue to provide the services that they need to provide. And that's just the staff. That's not taking into account the clients. And for those of you that received emails from Cecil on a regular basis, we're communicating with our clients that we're open for business. It's not in our nature, for one, certainly as brokers, to slow down very much. We know how to go really hard, and we usually, when we're not going really hard at doing our work stuff, we're going really hard at having fun doing something else, whether it's vacation, supporting our kids in athletics, whatever it may be. So there was no situation that we're going to live through where we're not really working hard, and we're communicating that to our clients. What does working hard mean right now? That's the question. If your transaction volume has gone down fairly substantially, which it has, how are you devoting your time and spending your time? And so again, that's where I kind of, as a leader of the team, look around at our human capital, all of our people in the company and our clients outside of the company, and go, all right, what can we do to make it a better situation for people? And initially, very quickly that meant communicating with clients to help them read their leases, whether that be a landlord that we represent and helping him understand what his leases say, or a business owner that signed a lease 3 years ago and has 3 years of lease term remaining, but they don't know, did they negotiate an opportunity to terminate early? Did they negotiate an opportunity to extend? Is it smart to, extend today in hopes that maybe you can get some rent relief or some kind of concession from your landlord, knowing that you're living through a short-term pain at minimum, but that long-term you're going to continue to succeed in that location. So why not extend it for a few years and get some short-term relief? And so that was very early on, talking mid to late March. A lot of those conversations were had by our property management company as well as our brokers. Those conversations continue to be had for companies now that are kind of coming to the realization that, okay, this is going to last longer than I expected. And then in worst case scenario, it's, we've been given notice that this business is never going to reopen. And unfortunately, the longer this goes on, the more of those messages, we receive. And so then we're talking to our clients about preparing the property for, backfilling the space, or, is now the appropriate time to try and sell, because maybe you had a large tenant that's moved out, and obviously your cash flow is going to be impacted substantially because of that. But maybe it opens up an opportunity for another business that wants to buy their real estate to come in and buy it from you and occupy the space. So there's a lot of different scenarios that we work through with our clients. But generally speaking, it's our focus has been, especially as a brokerage team, the property management team, it's the way they work at all times. They're always on the phone with their clients because they've got daily, things that come up. On the brokerage team, we build relationships for literally a lifetime in order to get an opportunity to do one deal. And so now is a great opportunity for us to be on the phone and really calling our clients first, making sure that we're answering all of those questions or helping them strategically plan for where they need to be, where they need to go. And then getting on the phone and calling prospective clients and or referral sources. And, again, the focus is really just communicating with them of how are you getting through this? Having a conversation like we're having right now, which is, I want to learn about what you guys are doing to succeed. What are you seeing in your industry? How can I learn from the stuff that you're living through right now? And then ultimately, the goal is that that relationship continues to get stronger and ultimately lead to doing business together if you're not doing business with that person currently. And so really, and you're one of the best at this, I would say, is just getting on the phone, having a real conversation with somebody, understanding the challenges that they're living through, and seeing if there's some way that today we can help, or down the road we've got now more information that helps us solve a problem for them in the future.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, there's a lot of great stuff there. I want to touch on a couple of pieces. First and foremost, you made me think of a joke, and you made me chuckle a little bit there for a second. It's funny, I've talked to a couple of business owners and things like that. And before this whole mess, they're like, I'm really focused on, spending more time with my family, and really I'd like to, have freedom to spend time with my kids and then my wife. And coronavirus hits, and they're like, well, listen, I didn't ask for this much time.
It's interesting because, there's no way I would ever get this much time with my soon-to-be 3-year-old daughter and my 1-year-old son. And, as anyone who's had, multiple kids at that age, or one kid for that matter, literally in a matter of 2 minutes, you can be like laughing and having the best time ever to, somebody slamming a door on you and you're going, I don't know how to deal with this. But I would, in many ways, I will look back on this, I hope, and I'm optimistic that we're a great country. We're a really strong industry in a great country. We will, survive this and come out of this. How long it takes, yet to be determined. But I know I'll look back on this time and hopefully forget the frustrations and the uncertainties, and just remember the fact that I got to spend, so far nearly 2 months, significantly more time with my kids than I would have never had the opportunity to do. So you can be thankful for these things. It's okay to be thankful for that kind of thing.
It's a blessing in disguise. So Hyatt Commercial. So you came from McKinsey, which is a large consulting company, and you worked there for roughly 10 years. You'd come to Hyatt. Hyatt has been around for over 60 years. They were, Lou Hyatt was the patriarch who started it, over almost 60 years ago, or a little bit over 60 years ago now. And he started it as, a small brokerage, and has expanded in so many other things. Now Hyatt Commercial serves property management. Hyatt Commercial has, a maintenance team to support their property management, has the brokerage services for leasing and for sales. So we have, independent contractors, you have employees, and you're on both sides of the spectrum there. When you came into Hyatt, you recognized that the company, 60 years old, had incredible relationships entrenched in the community, had an incredible presence, but also wasn't necessarily virtually adept to moving forward. And so you came in, and just by happenstance, by working at McKinsey, you knew that there was a couple of technological shifts that needed to happen. And I think that's across the board with other companies. PricewaterhouseCooper, was working on a study back in 2013 that says by 2030, more than 50% of jobs will be computerized, in the sense that, be working through cloud software. And you came in and you implemented virtual technology that allowed agents to access their hard drives through software. Almost seems like an oxymoron there, but allowed them to access all of their data virtually, process all deals virtually. You allowed them to implement a system where all of their marketing could be done virtually, and pretty much almost inadvertently set yourself up in a position to have a completely virtual team. When COVID hit, you made a decision along with a couple of other leaders in the organization that you needed to shift to as few people in the office as possible. With independent contractors and employees, both in the office there, you had to really identify how that was going to work. And because you had implemented these virtual technologies, we were able to say, hey, brokerage team, you guys are able to telework. And then some of the employees for the property management team, maybe shifting things up if need be, but really focused on the brokerage team being able to telework and almost having the size of the office there to reduce that flow. So that was one of the first steps that you guys took, really moving Hyatt into position to be able to navigate the uncertain period. And then you jumped into a couple other things. So you talked about leadership and you talked about support. I think one of the big things here, human capital, and I wrote a couple of things down here, but it goes into, the human capital can fit so many different categories, but it really dives into, there's specific technical pieces of human capital, but there's also, intangible aspects, the ingenuity, and support from a leadership level and innovation, maybe from ground level or even leadership level. And you mentioned conversations that you were having where with your team is all about how can I support you for your goals, because that inherently helps, our team's goals. And then you even brought that into the brokerage team, working with businesses, working with investors, having conversations with them on how they're navigating and helping them navigate that. And right now in an uncertain period, the value of that human capital is how can we help others navigate this? And as we emerge, that support will pay off dividends. Now, this is your second recession that you've been through, or at least some type of second correction, downturn. Obviously, a pandemic was really the pin here, and so it's a completely different situation because of the pandemic piece. But when you just entered, brokerage back in 2008, 2009, that was right before that massive real estate shift. Now we're seeing a totally different type of shift. Emerging from here, you and I have talked about how that human capital will really help us emerge and get back to where we were before. How do you see teams starting to emerge from this and working together even more so than they are now to come out and survive this long-term shift?
Sure. So a lot going on there.
Yeah. Do you want me to restate the last question so it's a little bit more clear?
No, I think I have a pretty good sense of what you're talking about. Let me back up though. And this answers your last question, but also something you said earlier. In 2008, I started in real estate in 2007. I started in commercial real estate in 2008. I'm nearly positive, had I not been hired in January of 2008, I would never be in this industry, because 2 or 3 months later, Bear Stearns collapsed, and the world was turned upside down. But it was a totally different scenario than what we're living through now. Back then, it was really unknown what industries were gonna take a serious hit from it. What industries weren't. And it was much slow while it kind of happened comparatively quickly, maybe to other recessions and to other situations that didn't involve some kind of war or some kind of terrorist attack. Relative today, it happened very slowly. Now looking back on it, February 1st of this year, business was fantastic. I mean, literally, we were coming off of the best month of my entire time at Hyatt Commercial. And by the end of February, there was some concern that we had this disease coming our way. by the end of March, the world is completely different. I mean, literally, I haven't seen you in 6 or 7 weeks now, it feels like. And every single industry has been impacted by it. That's not how it was before. And in many ways, in the commercial real estate world, that led to a lot slower and a lot longer process of right sizing of businesses and valuations, and took many years to kind of get back to what felt like a thriving industry. Although it kind of went up and down personally as well as just the market as a whole. I used to joke, I used to give a market update for Arundel and Howard County, and every year, because it was true at that time, every year was better than the year before for me. And I say, I can't tell you what it was like in 2006 or 2007, when it was at the time the best market ever for commercial real estate. I can only tell you from 2008, 2009, which were both, 2008 wasn't terrible, 2009 and 2010 were. Then it essentially has gotten better ever since. This will probably be the first year of my career where I really feel like it went the opposite direction. And so getting back to your question now, again, I grew up an athlete, you grew up an athlete, met a lot of the people in the office here grew up athletes. I was never the best player on my team in any sport, I would say. But I was the captain of every team I ever played on. I ended up playing on a national championship team at the University of Virginia. And I mention that because to me, again, it taught me that it's always the people around you and the systems and the culture and the process that really leads to great successes. And I try and one, lead that way from Hyatt Commercial perspective, especially in times like this, and two, instill that in the agents and the brokers, because we're not a software engineer that has this really unique skill to do this thing and do it really well. We are leaders of teams. So even as individual agents, you're not just great at marketing one property and that's your job. No, your job is to lead many people and give them the tools that they need to succeed, whether it's running their business, running their real estate investment. And so now is the time that, one, we can all get better at that, and that's a matter of educating ourselves better, taking online courses, researching the market, just, getting ahead on trends that were coming. That's one thing generally in this market. I anticipate that certain trends are going to be expedited, things that were slowly working themselves through, one of which being the restaurant industry. That is a massively important part of our industry that is going to be in some serious pain for the foreseeable future. And there was already a pretty good sentiment in the industry that there was too many restaurants. Costs were getting too substantial to sustain as many restaurants as we had. Well, coming out of this, that dynamic is gonna change. We're gonna lose a lot of good quality restaurants simply because they were shut down for as long as they were. But it's just, again, shortening that timeline. A lot of places that are not going to survive this weren't going to survive anyhow. It's just this gives them a very distinct timeline for shutting their doors. Back to your question, though, again, on the technology side, that was, and it wasn't, I didn't envision a pandemic coming on to prepare for. I just envisioned a world where our agents and our brokers can work from anywhere, because what we're all really good at is, thinking strategically on how pieces fit together. What we're all, not all, but what many of us struggle at is the day-to-day tasks, of, processing a deal, ordering signage, doing all of the things that ultimately make it so we can make money, but they're not the things that we're great at that allow us to go out and make money. So, having those resources available to the brokerage team where you don't have to spend a lot of time, waste a lot of time really, getting things done by sitting at your desk. I wanted you guys to have the ability to do that from anywhere and have it be really process focused and really streamlined. A pat on the back to everybody on the team for adopting it, because we've proven in the last 2 months that those resources are really valuable to us. The one thing that you didn't really touch on, which again, this is part of the opportunity that we have right now of calling our clients and providing much more detail on what it is that we actually do on a day-to-day basis to get their to succeed at their goals. Things like having a proprietary research group that when we want to find out who the owner of or who represents a retail business, we plug it in the system, and within a couple of days we're getting feedback on who to connect with, what it is that they're looking for, where they're looking for these spaces, and so that shortens our timeline from a research perspective. Hey, we've got an old bank branch that needs to be backfilled. Okay, well, we've talked to as many banks as we can. Some have shown some interest, but not totally sure that they need a location there. Okay, what are the 20 other concepts that can work and business models that can work in an old bank branch? All right, let's research that. Okay, now we've got a list of 20 potential users that didn't require an agent to sit at their desk, for 10 hours a day researching who it is that's making those decisions for those businesses. We have a tool now that does that for us. We have a tool that you use quite frequently of identifying who the owner of a property is, and then aggregating all of the buildings that they own based on certain information. And now when you pick up the phone and call that person, you know that they also own 3 or 4 other things. So that's the message that we're delivering to our clients right now is, hey, this is a relationship business, and this is in many ways still a lot of gut instinct to know where to go with something when you have a requirement, but having these tools and explaining to them what those tools are, how we shorten the process and make best use of our time. And again, that wasn't anything that was preparing for this type of a situation, but certainly coming out of this type of a situation, I've got an article here, and you may have even been, actually it's not an article, it's a Word document from December of, technologies for commercial real estate. Now's a time when I can really dig into those technologies, learn about them, and make sure that that our agents have every resource that they need to succeed as we come out of this.
I love that. So I've got a 2-part question. I guess I'll frame it and then I'll ask one and then the other. First and foremost, we're already shifting into a virtual world. This is already happening. Pandemic totally exponentially increases that need. And so, the question, and again, this is 2-part question. So the question is, how does our business and how does the United States economy shift more to virtual? And the first part of that question is, you talked a lot about systems in place, processes in place, showing exemplary leadership and support. So I think the first part of your question is how do you build that same culture virtually and how do you show that same or represent that same leadership virtually? And then the second question is, what more technology do you see emerging in commercial real estate as a result of this? So the first one is, as we move into a more virtual world, how do you see leadership and culture and support of your team, the execution of that shifting in a virtual world?
So again, it's all results driven, right? There's things that we can do and things that we are doing currently on a weekly or daily basis that are just about communication. But at the end of the day, it's still all results driven. And so 2 examples of that we're currently living through is probably second week or maybe third week of March, we transitioned to, instead of a every other week coffee in the morning as a team, which we were really just getting good at and utilizing really well as a team, we've now transitioned to twice a week a Zoom conference call. And in that call, our focus and it's a balance of having a structure to the call versus just giving people a opportunity to collaborate and to communicate and to feel like they're still part of a team. And so our structure has been fairly loose, but it's essentially, asking each member of the team, how's your health, mental health and physical health. And interestingly enough, as I mentioned early on, every day is a different answer from the same person. Some days mental health is good, some days physical health is good, some days neither is good, some days one or the other. But what it does is it allows us all to be able to give a little bit of input on what we're feeling and then get some positive feedback on, hey, don't worry about it, we'll get you through this, or hey, I dealt with the same thing, we're gonna come out of this, and being able to support each other in a way that email certainly doesn't do any good for that. And seeing each other on a call has a lot of value. Being on a conference call is not the same as being on a Zoom call. I will say that I think when you need to build camaraderie virtually, it has to be done in with video. There's no way to, shouldn't say there's no way, the depth of camaraderie that can be achieved with video is significantly better than just on a conference call. And so that's one way is having a more structured schedule to when you communicate with each other and what you communicate about. Back to the point. So mental health, physical health, what is the success you've had this week, and do you need help with something? And the do you need help and success part of it don't have to be about commercial real estate. Again, back to my original comment on this interview is we're all about the relationships. So we know each other's families, we know each other's clients, we know each other's homes and dogs and what they're doing, and we send each other pictures of playing board games with your kids at night, or sitting out at your fire and having a happy hour drink, or building a new vegetable garden, whatever it may be. All of that is important to building the camaraderie of a team, and it's very difficult digitally to do that. So my twofold answer is there are ways to do it. I think it requires video for sure. Having a team text chain is great as well, but you have to be cautious with that because you don't want it to be too big. We have a manageable size team. There's 9 or 10 of us on that Zoom call and text chain, and there's a lot of respect for each other and a lot of caring for each other. So it goes really well. If you get too big, then you lose the purpose of it. So really have, and this goes to how you build the company as a whole going forward. It's all about culture to me. And having the right people in place is far more important than having many, many people in place.
Well, you mentioned two things there. You mentioned, one thing, building, being a leader during this time is about results, right? So it's on one hand, it's like, okay, what's happening and what results are happening and how can we influence those results? But then the other thing is like, how do we build culture and focus on, mental health, physical health, camaraderie. And I think, I love that you're doing calls you're not just doing calls focused on, hey, here's a business deal we're working on it, and how do we get to the execution of this, or how do we move forward? But it's also, making a point to have calls checking in on mental health, physical health, and just showing, hey, we're more than just the result, because you have to focus on the people aspect of it. But then the results don't happen unless the people are there together and the camaraderie is there, and then the results come afterwards.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, the business calls are always going to happen, right? We're always going to coordinate a conference call that is required. So this is a call that is above and beyond just let's get something accomplished. It's very linear. Right? We need to get this done. Okay, here's how we do it. The Zoom call or team calls we do now twice a week is kind of to not focus on that, and it's to focus on the relationships with each other and to support each other, and to be excited about things that happen, because we don't get to pass each other in the hallway that we normally do, or walk into my office. So that, but then back to your results side of it, a good example that we've, and hopefully this week we will achieve the result side of it, is that not many people, recognize that Hyatt Commercial is a subsidiary of Severn Bank, a community bank that has been fantastic through this PPP loan process. We have clients calling us as brokers, asking for introductions to the bank now, that they have known for years could be there if they needed it. Well, this is required that relationship now in a lot of ways. And the reason that's relevant to us is that as 1099 independent contractors, our brokers qualify for PPP loans, or at least should, given the paperwork and the details. But I've heard many banks, because they're small amounts and require the same amount of paperwork as a big deal, have just kind of said, no, we're not doing it. In our case, Severn Bank, the minute that there was guidelines in place, basically has said, get your paperwork in. We're going to try and process them as fast as we can. Again, I knock on wood because it hasn't been done yet. The result of success hasn't come yet. But from a leadership perspective, knowing that we can provide that resource to our agents goes a long way. On the flip side of that, and again, this isn't disparaging to my previous company, because they were fantastic people as well and took care of their people greatly. But in that downturn, instead of having, the opportunity to go take out a loan, which wasn't available back then, we were being told as young agents, hey, sorry, we're going to have to cut this, or we're going to have to cut that. Our goal is to not have to do any of those things for our team, and to really focus on supporting the team to survive through this.
Without a doubt. You mentioned a number of things that brokers are doing on a day-to-day basis. The emergence of technology in our business is very clear. You talked about databases where if you're looking for ownership of companies, or you're looking for companies that are looking for space, there's resources out there. There's resources for property management, understanding operating expenses. There's resources for building an understanding of what owners own what real estate, and and maybe even what loans they have on, and understanding how long they've owned it. Maybe even looking at the rental history. So us as brokers are utilizing technology constantly to really understand, our markets. And then you mentioned that, now you even have more time to really dive into what other technology can be used. What do you see emerging from this, technology for wise, in terms of, there's time for people to innovate. What technology did you see coming out of this? Or maybe whether it's not maybe it's already existing, you're using it more, or maybe it doesn't exist yet.
That's a good question. I think that the remote work and the mobile, virtual work environment is certainly going to grow, but I don't think it's going to change the need to still have space, right? I think people like working from an office and like the camaraderie, back to the previous question of seeing each other, being able to walk into my office. So I think that there's a bit of an overstatement of how much the work environment is going to change coming out of this from a space requirement. I do think that the technologies will continue to get better, and I do envision people, whether it's flex schedules or just choosing to work more time at home versus every day in the office. I do envision that changing, but I don't think it's going to substantially change the amount of space per person that a company needs.
What technology are you looking into?
Right. Before I get to that, what I do worry about is that in times of recession and times like this, people get back to right sizing their workforce. Where it was okay to have 5 people doing the job of 3 when things are good and when the economy is great and you're making plenty of money. So I think that generally speaking, I think we are going to have a contraction, even for healthy companies that just go, hey, we had grown so fast and been so successful over these last 5 years that we can shift around, and this goes back to the technology side of it. These 5 people now with 3, I can get the same accomplished with some technologies. In the commercial real estate world, all of the things that you touched on, analytics, research, databases, the things that can be done with data will continue to move towards the technology realm. Personal relationships for a business like ours are always going to be just as important or of greater importance. And so it's going to be resources for agents or managers, property managers, to do their job better, not replace them doing their job. Doesn't mean that some of that won't happen. An example would be, ground leases, right? There's probably a algorithm that somebody can build that plugs in the variables of a ground lease, term, credit of the tenant, size of the property, obviously rental income, type of lease that it is, a whole host of inputs that could kick out what a value is for that property. It's what we call coupon clippers. So, it's really taking money from this investment, shifting it to this investment, making, profiting from the sale over here, deferring taxes and putting it into, an acquisition over here. And there's probably an algorithm at some point that tells you what that value is. Again, it doesn't change the fact that people are going to need to know how to use that algorithm. People are going to need to have access to it. People are going to need to know, and this is where a database comes in. There could be, thousands of 1031 exchanges occurring, at any given time that, they log into this website and boom, there's 25 ground leases that they can look at. And, based on their requirements going in and the algorithm's value coming out, you get a match. So those kinds of things concern me a little bit but for our focus, it's really going to be on what technologies can we implement to give our brokers, better resources. A good example is, the industry standard for investment properties is running an Argus model, right? And Argus is really expensive, can be very cumbersome.
And that's an underwriting software, right?
Correct. Underwriting software. So it's an Excel-based underwriting software. That's the kind of gold standard in our industry. I'd say 99.9% of brokers either start with or don't have Argus and says start with their own Excel spreadsheet. And Excel is fantastic for doing what I call kind of your back of napkin equations all the way up to an Argus run. But Excel requires that you have either built that model and you're plugging into the variables into it, which is cumbersome and takes a lot of experience, or you get an Argus, or it's something that you build every time you do it because each property is unique. Well, there's now web-based platforms that kind of fit in between. They're not as detailed as an Argus, but they're also not as cumbersome as an Argus. They don't require you to build your own model in Excel. So that's something that you and I together have used many times. And again, it's just a tool. We use it as a way to, confirm something that we probably already felt and to evaluate the details of a deal that you wouldn't be able to show as easily in a, simple Excel spreadsheet. So that's the kind of tool that, technology is providing to brokers. It doesn't take away from what we provide to our clients. It enhances what we provide to our clients.
Without a doubt. Well, Justin, thank you. We've had a great interview here. Is there any final thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think, again, this isn't unique to the situation we're living through. It's, just a general thought is that, optimism always carries the day. There's lots of reasons to be, concerned and fearful of what the future holds. For our team in particular, we are enthusiastic, hungry, very agile. One of my concerns, but it's also one of the things that I think make us strong, is that we have a bunch of people on the team that haven't lived through something like this yet. The good news about that is that there's a little bit of naive factor there, that you just keep your head down and just fight through. You don't know how bad it could get. The flip side of that is that for somebody that has been very active and able to push and push and push and push and achieve, now in a lot of ways that same person isn't going to be as active. The market isn't going to be as receptive to hit their action as it was 6 months ago, and the results that they get aren't going to be as easily affirming to their efforts. And so for me, it's really about being honest and realistic about the situation that we're living through. Hey, this is not going to turn around overnight. Things that you've worked on and things that you've chased for a long time are going to disappear. It's simply the nature of this type, recession of any kind, and this seems to be, far deeper than what I've lived through in the past. But we have the skills, we have the ability, we have the resources, we have a really stable business model that will get us through this. And ultimately, our team will come out much stronger on the other side of this, so long as we continue to build rapport with each other, build on the resources that we already have, and focus on staying in touch with our clients and educating ourselves through those relationships, as well as any other resources we can find.
Capitalize on that human capital. All right. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.